What is going on, everybody? How is everybody doing today? So I had this idea that I wanted to react to some NBA hot takes before the new NBA 2K comes out in about a week, and I thought it would be a lot more entertaining of a video if I brought another YouTuber on to do this as well. So I'm joined here by Massa today. What up, man?
Not much, man. How you doing?
Doing good. So I have 12 around there different hot takes that I asked you guys on Twitter for your guys just kind of suggestions or hot takes that you have that are reasonable, and we're going to be going through each one of them today and be giving out our stamp of approval, saying if we agree with it or we're saying nope, that's a complete hot take, never going to happen, why'd you even mention that? And I'll leave a link to Messa's YouTube channel in the description below, and if you guys do enjoy these style of videos, feel free to drop a thumbs up, would really appreciate it, and let's get into it. Alright, so the first one is from Chris Wheeler02. He says the Atlanta Hawks will disappoint this season, similar to the Miami Heat last season. I predict they will be the 6th to 7th seed and lose in the first round. What do you think about that?
With Atlanta, I feel like obviously they had a lot of help with, Brooklyn being so injury prone at all times. I mean, Kyrie Irving was obviously hurt. James Harden was hurt. I like Atlanta a lot this season. I don't know if they're going to be back in the East Finals necessarily when you look at a team like Milwaukee, who still is very, very strong. Obviously, if Brooklyn can stay healthy, I think they're the clear favorites in the East, at least in my opinion. And, who knows what's going to happen in Philly with Ben Simmons and stuff like that. But the 6 to 7 seed, I think that might be a little low. I could definitely see them maybe over there 5 last year. I could definitely see them again in that 4 to 5 range.
Yeah, I agree. I could see them pretty much around that 5 seed, and I think, like you said, it really depends on who they get in round 1. Like, if they faced the Heat last year instead of the Knicks, I think we're looking at this team completely different. Like, I think Miami would have beaten this team, or even Boston could have beat this team in round 1. They just matched up really well with the Knicks. And, yeah, like you said, like, with teams getting better, like the Bulls, the Knicks got better. Like, you're going to have the Pacers, the Celtics, some of those lower-end Eastern Conference playoff teams that they're going to be facing, they might not get out of round 1. So I could buy this take from Chris.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I just think that it's all depending on the first round matchup, honestly, after that.
All right, so the next one is from Champ Howard. He says, Devin Booker is the best shooting guard in the league. He never had a chance to prove it until he got a good team, and then he went to the finals when his team wasn't garbage. Do you buy that take, or do you think he's not the #1 shooting guard?
Yeah, that's tough for me. I mean, technically at this point, do you consider Harden a point guard?
See, I was going to say the same thing, if we're going to consider Harden a point guard or not. Because if he's a shooting guard, obviously James Harden's better than Booker. So we'll consider him a point guard, because then this will maybe be a more interesting exercise.
Yeah, so, I mean, I still probably like Bradley Beal over him a little bit. Obviously, they're in very different situations, and just the general teams that are built around them are not anything similar. But when you get into this group of guys with like Devin Booker, Donovan Mitchell, Zach LaVine, you can even occasionally throw in a Jaylen Brown. It's so tough because I feel like people just go back and forth. So, is he the best? Probably not. I'm still taking Beal over him right now, anyways. Maybe at the end of this year, I do have a different opinion, but. Obviously, if we're still including Harden as a point guard, I definitely do say Devin Booker's #2 in my list.
Yeah, I can get behind that. I think Beal's probably slightly better, and like you said, if they were in kind of a similar situation, if Beal, you just plug and play him on this Phoenix team, they probably still go to the finals. I don't think it would be much different. And you would obviously consider Donovan Mitchell. He's always going to be compared with Devin Booker throughout their careers. And then I guess that's really the top 3 if we're not considering Harden, because if Harden's a shooting guard, he's in a tier of his own. So then, yeah, you pretty much have, I would say, Beal, Booker, and Mitchell. And then you wouldn't put Clay in that tier, right? Or with
probably
the injuries?
Not. Yeah, probably not off the injury. I mean, 2-3 years ago, he's definitely up there. He's probably #2 right behind Harden at that point. But after these injuries, you don't really know what you're going to get out of him. I do think Golden State's going to have a great year with him, but I'm a little nervous about after bouncing back from all those injuries.
Yeah, I agree. And then I guess like kind of on the bubble of that tier, like you mentioned, LaVine, Brown. I think we're kind of like off the McCollum is an elite shooting guard. He's definitely a tier below that. So yeah, I could say I'm not going to buy this take, especially if Harden's a shooting guard. And if he's not a shooting guard, yeah, I agree. I think Beal's better. Next one comes from Daniel Walsh. He is saying that PG will take back to his MVP year from 2019 when he was in OKC. He'll average around 27 points, 7 rebounds, have great shooting efficiency, and the Clippers will be a top 4 seed. This is definitely a hot take because of how competitive the Western Conference is. Do you think PG can carry this team?
I think he's definitely going to take another step. I think he's going to go back towards more of what he was doing in Oklahoma City rather than what he kind of played like at some points in the bubble. Obviously didn't have the best end to, that season in the bubble when obviously the world was very, very different. But, I just think we don't know how long Kawhi Leonard's going to be out. And obviously Paul George's numbers are going to look better no matter what if Kawhi Leonard's not on the floor. In some cases, you can say sometimes they might even look better when he's on the floor because it takes away a lot of the attention. But I think Paul George, who, as you can see right here, was basically a 50-40-90 member, I think he can definitely be back to, maybe close to that. I don't know if he's going to be in the MVP conversation, especially with guys like Luka, Giannis. I mean, I think LeBron's going to take, that back to that MVP caliber this year. I mean, before he got injured, he was still very much up there last year. So I don't know about MVP, but I definitely think his numbers are going to be better than what they were last year, at least to start the year.
Yeah, I can get behind that. I think PG, as we saw him in Indiana with this, and definitely his top 5 MVP finish in 2019, he's definitely better as the number 1 option. I feel like we've seen him 2 years in LA with the Clippers, and when Kawhi went down, PG was great for them as really the number 1 option, going winning against the last 2 games against Utah, and then even the start of that Phoenix series, that kind of obviously have been swayed a little bit different. So I'm not going to buy this take. I think this is a hot take. I don't think that they're going to be a top 4 seed. I could think that he can get a top 6 MVP finish if they are a playoff team and he's averaging these elite numbers. Because like you said, like in the MVP race, or it's going to be tough for him to be in that top 3. And then the Western Conference, you have the Lakers, you have the Mavericks, you have the Nuggets, the Jazz, the Suns, the Warriors. It's going to be tough for them to be a 4 seed. And I'm trying to even think, like, who do you think even emerges as that number 2 scorer? Is it going to be Reggie Jackson? I don't even know.
I mean, I would just assume it would have to be. I mean, just taking a look at how that roster is, kind of made up. It's kind of built for, like, a big duo that, kind of takes over the majority of the scoring. Like, I think Reggie Jackson's going to be good. I don't know if he's going to be as good as he was at some points in the playoffs last year. I liked them bringing him back. But now that Beverly's gone especially, I think he'll get even more playing time. So I like it. But, again, top 4 seed for me is a little too hot, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if Reggie Jackson or Bledsoe or even Terrence Mann or Kennard can even emerge as the number 2 option where it's like, yeah, they're a top 4 seed. So yeah, I'm going to sell this take. Next one comes from Larry Bird. He says Luka averages 30, 10, and 10, and the Mavs, and wills the way to the Mavs being a top 3 team in the Western Conference. Porzingis will average 20 points per game. I'm guessing he's going to say he's going to have a good season. And Kidd is a good fit in his first season there. Oof, that's a hot take. What do you think?
Luka's my pick for MVP right now. I think it's his time to shine in that department anyways. I'm so up in the air on KP. Obviously, the legend of Porzingis was kind of born in New York and obviously got traded to Dallas a few years ago. And, things haven't kind of worked out exactly the way they were thinking they were going to get the play. Like, they weren't getting the player that they thought they were from New York, I would say. Yeah. For the 30, 10, and 10 for Luka, I think it's possible. I don't know. I mean, I'm a little iffy on, just some of those numbers. I think maybe double-digit rebounds might be a lot. Don't get me wrong, he's one of the best rebounding guards in the entire league. But, for a triple-double through now a full 82-game season and a top 3 finish in the West for Dallas, that is going to take a lot. Like, if he's doing that, he's 100% my MVP.
Yeah, I think so. And I picked Luka to win MVP last year, and obviously I might have been a year early because I also picked Joel Embiid to win MVP 2 years ago, and that was kind of a year early because he was in the race last year a lot more. So I could definitely see Luka willing his team to a top 3 finish, and the Porzingis averaging 20. I think Porzingis, while he's still healthy, he's still a good player. I'm just a little nervous on the kid thing because we saw him in Brooklyn, was a mess. Saw him in Milwaukee, was a mess. Now he looks like he did fine in LA as the assistant. I just don't know. I'm scared about this season for Kidd just because he's been so bad as a head coach in the league.
If you're on him, I feel like when you get former players in there as head coaches, they're typically either like a big hit or a big miss. And obviously, Kidd, hasn't really proved that he can be a very good head coach yet. So I think if him and Luka can kind of coexist, obviously when you get some former players in there, sometimes it does kind of tend to be tough. But I think if they end up working well together, I think it's possible, but again, I'm still nervous on him too.
All right, next one comes from Sean. He says Nuggets won't win a championship with Jokic and Murray unless Michael Porter Jr. becomes a superstar. Okay, what do we think about this one?
Well, that's an interesting one. I think Denver has always been just like one almost, I don't want to say piece just because they have such depth on the roster. Over past years, they've had such depth, but I understand what they're saying about Michael Porter Jr. Obviously, there were injury concerns with him going into the draft. That's why he fell a little bit. I like his potential a lot. I love the modern NBA kind of prototype where you like a guy who's 6'9", 6'10", 6'11", somewhere in that frame that can really be explosive and can shoot the ball. I really do like that. And so if he can stay healthy, to me, I think he's definitely a candidate to be close to the most improved department this year. Is he going to ever become a superstar? I don't know about that, but I think Denver ultimately is probably going to be in that mix this year. Are they going to win the West? Probably not, but I do think they're probably going to be a top 4 or 5 seed here in the West this year.
Yeah, I can get behind that, and I think, like you said, Porter Jr., he's got one of the nicest jump shots in the game, and his just size makes him so versatile on the wing. Now, I don't know, I don't think he can become a superstar. I actually have him as my most improved player, and maybe he will become like a star in this league. I think really it depends on how Jamal Murray is, and he was great in the bubble, because we know how good Jokic is and how well how much better he can make his teammates. It's just, I don't know if Murray can be that number 2. That's why I always said if Damian Lillard is ever actually, like, on the trade market realistically, they should throw Murray and like all their young guys they have on their team, not named Porter Jr. and first round picks, just to get that, because I would just love a big 3 of Jokic, Lillard, and Porter Jr. So yeah, I'm agreeing with you here. I don't really think the Nuggets. I don't think Porter Jr. is going to become a superstar. Therefore, I don't think the Nuggets will probably win a championship. So this is a good take from Sean. Welcome back, LMA. He says Ben Simmons should be working on his rim protection. He can work on the shooting after, so he could play the center position full time. If he could protect the paint with his frame and legitimate 1 through 5 switchability, Ben Simmons could be one of the best defenders in NBA history. So this is kind of making me think, like, what if Ben Simmons just modeled his game after Bam Adebayo? They're not too far in size. So, like, I guess he does have a point there.
Yeah, it's funny. I've actually seen this take before. He had this video as well. I understand what you're saying here in the aspect of Ben Simmons should probably be working on more around the rim stuff like that, and should be kind of focusing on. He's not going to shoot. Let's just put that out there. He's not going to really shoot the basketball. Hell, some people still think he's shooting with the wrong hand. So, working on the rim protection aspect of his defensive game, I think would definitely help him out a ton. Best defensive player in NBA history, that might be a definite stretch. But, I think he definitely, and not even take a next step because he's already one of the best defensive players in the league. But I think this takes not so much crazy out of the woodwork, except for the idea that he could be the best defensive player in NBA history. But I do like the first part of this.
Yeah, I agree, and I think I could see him being a good center. Like if the Sacramento Kings or maybe the Toronto Raptors actually pulled a trigger on a Ben Simmons trade, I would actually love to see him at the 5 there, playing next to Scotty Barnes in Toronto, or maybe potentially playing next to. I guess I really don't know who the power forward would be, because Bagley would probably be at a deal. But I think that, it would be interesting for a team to maybe go out and trade for him and let him be the center. So I didn't get behind it. All right, this one's actually one of my favorites. It's by Sportsmaster, and he says, Pacers are one superstar away from being good. They have depth and a starting 5 of all-star caliber players. Okay, that's maybe a little bit of a stretch, but they need one superstar to be good. Potentially trade a couple of those guys for someone that is on a selling team. Now, I like this take because I feel like the Pacers, obviously because of their market size and they don't have like a flashy star player, because their best player is Massa Sabonis, not really kind of that super popular guy, that they actually are going to make the playoffs, which I think if they do so, and which I think they will, that means one of the Knicks, Bulls, and Celtics won't make it. So the Pacers are good, and I think he's right on the one superstar away. I just, I don't know. I'm trying to think, of who could it even be that guy that they could package, like a Brogdon and Turner or something like that to get.
Yeah, I just think when he says one superstar away, I think they just need a superstar in general. I mean, I like Massa Sabonis a lot. He's just not a superstar, though. Mm-hmm. But, when I look at the Pacers, they've been a team that I have in the past called one of the more average NBA teams. And I say average not in a bad way necessarily. They're typically a playoff team. I mean, obviously, we look back to the Victor Oladipo, Paul George trade. That kind of flipped it around. I mean, I think a lot of people probably thought when they traded Paul George away, they were not going to be good for a very, very long time. And obviously things kind of worked out a little bit differently. When we look at maybe them packaging a couple of those guys, Miles Turner's name has popped up in trade rumors for so long now. And I really wish they would either just trade him or just say they're going to fully keep him. Obviously nothing has really happened yet. But for me, he's one of those guys who, I love him a lot. I like his defense. I really think he's good on that aspect of the ball. But I almost wouldn't mind if they would maybe go after a defensive center, because they can definitely get something for Miles Turner. If they get maybe a cheaper end defensive center, you know what I'm saying? Because Miles Turner's probably never going to be a superstar in this league. I don't think that's a hot take. But if they get maybe some sort of other defensive-minded center, because, when you look at teams, Miles Turner's name pops up a lot. So I think if you can include him in a trade with, as you just said, maybe a Brogdon, I really would like that idea for Indiana.
Yeah, I feel that too, and I'm just trying to think, because he says superstar, so I'm going to sell that take, because I don't think there's really a trade on this roster that they can go out and get a superstar, because there's really only 12 superstars in this league, maybe 14, and I don't think Indiana, any of this core is getting there. But I do think their best chance of getting a superstar is literally building this team possibly around Karis LeVert. I think we've already seen Brogdon's peak. We know Turner's not going to be one. I think Sabonis, we know what he's going to be, but never going to be a superstar, like an all-star caliber player, and same with Warren. But Karis LeVert, I'm excited to see him fully healthy this year. I still can't believe the Rockets preferred Oladipo over LeVert. It actually blows my mind that they did that. I know maybe with the contract situation, but still, LeVert actually I think has star potential in this league, so I'm excited to see him this year. But it's interesting because the Pacers do have a good roster. It's just, yeah, they don't have that star or superstar caliber player. All right, this one comes from Alex Riley. He says the Warriors have a chance to win MVP in Steph Curry, Defensive Player of the Year in Draymond, Sixth Man of the Year in Jordan Poole, and Coach of the Year in Steve Kerr. Do you think all 4 of those is possibly realistic?
I don't know about all 4 of those. I mean, I when I look at Steph in the MVP department, Steph Curry's the best point guard in the league. That's still an absolute fact. There's really no change in that. So is he going to put up MVP numbers? Probably. But, at this point, I really don't know if Steph's winning another MVP throughout his career. He was obviously a unanimous MVP. It was 2015 back then. But,
yeah.
For that, I don't know if Steph Curry's going to be, putting up, like, when we look at MVPs, we look at Giannis's numbers. We look at Nikola Jokic's numbers, potentially Luka's this year. I don't know if Steph's going to be there. And I would say a lot of it does depend on where the Warriors do finish seed-wise. And then when we get to Draymond, look, I am not a big Draymond fan. I'm just not. I call him Mr. Triple Single, and I know basically the rest of Twitter does too. But I think Draymond's defense is still some of the more underrated defense in this entire league. So I don't think it's necessarily crazy to throw him in the Defensive Player of the Year award conversation. I'm hoping we can get a little change of pace in that this year. It feels like it's just Rudy Gobert every single year at this point.
Yeah.
Sixth Man of the Year in Jordan Poole. This one is probably, it almost feels like it's the most far-fetched, but I almost believe this one the most. It's almost a little bit hard. I think Jordan Poole's potential, at least personally, is through the roof. I like it a lot. I like that they didn't include him. Obviously, they really didn't pull a trigger on a trade for, including James Wiseman, their draft picks this year, which ended up being Kuminga and maybe an Andrew Wiggins. And they might have had to throw in Poole in that as well if they got another superstar. So I like that. I like Jordan Poole a lot. The Coach of the Year was Steve Kerr. It tends to be a team that, was obviously not so great last year and tends to turn around a lot the next season, which, don't get me wrong, Golden State was not a very good team last year due to injuries and stuff like that. I just don't know if they give it to them just because this team does have the makeup to kind of already be a good team.
Yeah, and I think like you mentioned at the beginning of your statement, it really depends on their seeding, because then that really, if they're not a top 3 seed, then you could probably throw the Coach of the Year and MVP out the window. But if there's a chance that the Warriors do play well, I know they won't get Clay back till Christmas, but it's still a realistic possibility they could be a top 3 seed. Then you can maybe get into the MVP Curry conversation and the Coach of the Year Kerr. Obviously, Draymond was, I believe, he finished 3rd last year, right? He was a finalist.
I think it was Gobert, Giannis, then him.
Okay. Simmons didn't make it?
Oh, no, it was Simmons. Simmons was second. My bad. It was Gobert, Simmons, and then...
Was it Draymond or Giannis? I forgot.
It was one of the two. They were in the top, they were both in the top 4.
Yeah, so I think that is also realistic. The Pool is interesting because, like you mentioned, it's far-fetched. But hey, Jordan Poole had a good end to last year's season, and we could see what he could do maybe coming off the bench, or maybe he'll get a more expanded role off the bench too when Klay Thompson's not there, because then he could just be able to get more shots up. So, I think I don't know. I'm trying to feel like if I wanted to rank these most likely, I feel like most likely would probably be Draymond, Depoy, and then 2 MVP Curry, 3 Kerr Coach, and then 4 Sixth Man of the Year Poole. All right, we have a Celtics one for you here. This one's from Ty. He goes, the only reason the Celtics are extending their players is to trade for Bradley Beal, or I guess really go out and assign a trade for him next offseason. Do you think that's actually a realistic possibility?
I think Brad Stevens has something up his sleeve that, even if it ends up not being Bradley Beal, I think he's going to do something that's on a much larger caliber than what he did this offseason anyways. I mean, obviously moving Kemba's never a small move, who's obviously in New York now, but I actually didn't mind the extension of Josh Richardson when he got it. Obviously, he gave one to Robert Williams as well, and there was a way that they could actually create a maximum cap space slot next year in free agency if they renounce the rights and all their players and stuff like that. But I almost prefer it better this way because you kind of don't just let everybody go for nothing. And typically when you do some of these renounced players and all stuff like that, and you almost lose an aspect of getting something in return. So I don't mind this one with some of the extensions. I'm a little bit iffy on the Richardson one, I'm not going to lie. I love the Robert Williams extension. I don't know if they're going to include him in a trade necessarily for Beal, but off the top of my head, if it's not Bradley Beal, I really don't know who it's going to be. So I think they're kind of just playing this safe that if Bradley Beal ends up not working out, they still do have all their guys signed.
Yeah, I can get behind that as well. Because, I guess if Beal was I'm not coming back to Washington and he verbally agrees to Boston, I guess, Washington, they'd be welcoming Robert Williams, Richardson, and Marcus Smart in return. Like, that's better than losing him for absolutely nothing. So I could definitely see this happening. It's probably to attempt to trade for Beal in a sign and trade next offseason. But yeah, if it's not Beal, I have no idea. I guess it's really just keeping the core, and hopefully Tatum emerges as like a top 7 guy in the league and can actually carry this Celtics team to the conference finals on his own.
That would be ideal as a Celtics.
Yeah. All right, and the final one is from Patty. He says the Hornets will be a top 6 seed in the Eastern Conference. When healthy, they were competing for that 4th seed, and they've only gotten better this offseason, I guess, by the additions of just kind of all their new centers, James Bouknight, and I keep forgetting, they got Kelly Oubre as well. So I don't know, like, if they're a 6th seed, right, and we're saying the top 4 guaranteed, like, in some shape or form, is Milwaukee, Brooklyn, Miami, and Philly, right? Like, you agree that those are locks? Okay. So then you have probably Atlanta somewhere in there, because reigning Eastern Conference finalists, like, we can give them the respect. So, like, that means only 3, right, yeah, 6, 7, 8, of these 5 teams would be making the playoffs. So you would have Charlotte, Indiana, Chicago, New York, and Boston. I just don't see Charlotte being better than those 4. Do you agree?
Oh, and I really don't either. You know, when I look at some of these things these teams have done this offseason, I think Boston's definitely got better. I love the addition of Kemba in New York, even, you know, he's injury prone. New York obviously signed Evan Fournier as well from Boston. So, you know, for me, those 2 teams are definitely going to take a step up from where they were last year. I don't think anybody expected the Knicks to be as good as they were last year. I'm not, not trying to...
No, I had them as dude, I had them as the 13th seed last year in the East, so I had no idea that was happening.
But, you know, when I look at top 6 seed for Hornets, I think a lot of their young guys are going to have to play really, really well. I actually do like the addition of Kelly Oubre Jr. a lot. I think if we look at what he's going to do, hopefully paired up in some sort of rotation with Gordon Hayward at that small forward shooting guard spot, whatever they want to call it. I think that's definitely going to help them out. And then I think LaMelo's taking another step this year. I just don't know if he's going to be taking the step to the level of kind of what Trae Young's doing, kind of carrying that team in Atlanta, who, if we want to call it what it is, it was a Cinderella run by them over the Eastern Conference Finals last year. So I don't know if they're necessarily doing that, but, you know, I think 6 seed's a little high. I could see them maybe around 7 or 8 this year, but 6 is still a little high for me, definitely.
Yeah, and with the play-in tournament, I could definitely see them in that. So, like, the only way I could see them not being in the play-in tournament and making the playoffs, if the Knicks regress, which is definitely a possibility because they shot so well from 3 last year with Randall, Barrett, Burks, Rose, all having career highs from 3, which can definitely regress. I'm thinking, I guess, like, the Celtics are maybe not built, like, God forbid an injury happens to one of their top 2 players. Like, that could be a scenario where maybe they fall out of the playoff picture. And then I guess Chicago, because they're just such a new roster, maybe it just doesn't gel together. I guess that's really the only way I'm thinking that maybe Charlotte could outperform those 3 teams. But that's a big if in each way. So yeah, I'm going to sell the stake. All right, so that is going to be it. Thank you for everyone that submitted their hot takes over on Twitter. You can go follow me on Twitter, link in the description to maybe be showcased in the next reaction video. Thank you, Massa, for coming on and doing this. It was super fun.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I'll leave a link to Massa's channel in the description below. Hope you guys did enjoy. Drop a like if you did. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.